welcome to another episode of Moving to Maryland. Today, I'm going to introduce two new team members to our podcast, Caitlin and Rushimear. How's it going, guys?
It's going well. Happy to be here.
That's awesome.
Really excited to be here.
And Megan.
I'm here. I'm a veteran of this podcast at this point.
And so we got rolling with this podcast so fast. So I want to introduce our two new team members and also talk to Megan a little bit about her experience living in the Baltimore area. So Caitlin, you were born at Johns Hopkins, weren't you?
Yep, I was born at Johns Hopkins. I was raised in the Rogers Forge area, so I spent a lot of time there in, Stoneleigh, Annesley, Towson, Ruxton, Timonium, that kind of whole Baltimore County circle. Yeah.
Right, North Beltway.
Yep.
What about you, Rush?
I grew up in East Baltimore in the Johnson Square community, over there by East Broadway.
Yep. So you born and raised in Baltimore City. You know all the neighborhoods probably.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Megan, you came here a little bit later in life and moved into Fells Point, right?
Yeah, I grew up in New York, and then I moved here right in Fells Point about, I think it was like April of 2019. So right when COVID hit and everything shut down, which was great. But the main draw for us was Fells Point. I mean, I've never, like when I grew up in New York, I grew up in the suburbs.
Yep.
Never actually hated New York City. But when I came here to Baltimore, it was totally different. And I absolutely loved it. And Fells Point was one of the neighborhoods that just really, I've never experienced anything like Fells Point. So the cobblestone roads, everything. And so it was a really cool experience to actually live in the city for the first time in my life.
Yeah, so I moved here to Maryland in 1984, went to Old Mill High School. I'll never forget the first day of school. We had moved just a few days earlier, and the kid came across the street, came out of his house, and he was wearing red parachute pants and purple Chuck Taylors. And I just came we lived in Guam in Hawaii, and, we wore flip-flops and swim trunks. And he was like, yeah, I got, 5 different colors of the parachute pants. I was like, man, what is he, like part of a clown show? It was pretty funny. But, so later in life when I moved out of the house, we found, I didn't move far. Like a lot of times when you move out of the house, you live close by, and then we go to Annapolis on the weekends and Baltimore City on the weekends. Annapolis, Baltimore City, and finally I moved to Baltimore City and Canton. So what about you, Caitlin? When you moved out of, after school, you moved out of the house, whatever, where did you move to, and what are some of the other communities you became familiar with?
Yeah, I moved to Hamden. So I lived right at 36 and Elm, in the middle of all the action on the avenue, and I loved living there. Then my husband and I lived in Harbor East for a while, and that's a great neighborhood. I also worked in Canton, at Brewers Hill, so I'm really familiar with that area as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. What about you, Russ?
I moved out to the Lock Raven community, not far from Mount Pleasant Golf Course and Morgan State University.
Oh, I love that area.
Lived there. Parkville is right up the street from there, and not far from there, you also have the Bel Air Edison community. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with all those communities. I lived in the different communities throughout my life.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. A lot of us move around. Then now you move in Ruxton. You moved to Ruxton, Megan.
Yeah. So we love the city, still love it. I mean, I'm obviously work here, and I'm down here pretty much every day of the week. But we ended up going to Ruxton just because we wanted, again, I grew up in the suburbs, so I kind of missed having a backyard and cookouts, and because we didn't have that where we were in a condo, so. That's kind of why we ended up moving to Ruxton, and I, still love the city, but I definitely miss my suburbia.
What about now, Caitlin? You, where do you live? You guys bought a place in Sparks, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we're up in Sparks. Loveton specifically is the community that we live in. But we spend a lot of time in Hunt Valley. We go for lots of walks at the NCR Trail through Sparks, which is lovely. I love where we are now. Obviously, I still spend a lot of time down in the city, but.
What about you, Rushimear?
I am out in the White Marsh area. I live in the Perry Hall area. We have the Honey Gold Park, the White Marsh Mall right there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of.
You go there all the time?
Love Dave and Buster's. And actually, we have a 55 and over community that's just like right up the street, new construction. Very, very nice. Lots and lots of parks. I don't have any kids, but if you have kids, this is the ideal place you might want to live. It's many parks. We have Gunpowder State Park right up the road from there, and it's just a lot of things to do.
Yeah, yeah. So it's great having you guys on the podcast. So Caitlin, Megan, Rushimear, and myself, we're all real estate agents. Our goal with this podcast and with this channel is to provide really good community neighborhood information, and but we can also help you with real estate. So our contact info is in this post. Reach out. Love to show you around town. Take care.